Gulvenaka and greetings to all of you in your recording. Community-based fisheries management taking place in. My name is Laitia Tamata. I am happy to be part of this initiative for the Our Future, which involves the funding through UAID, through Rhode Island University, and the implement of the program, the locally managed, marine managed area. I come to this program as a part-time and advisor to this project called the community project. The purpose of community project is to fill a gap in the community management, community governance, and community monitoring processes of fisheries initiatives through fisheries communities. So the presentation that I'm going to be giving is actually, the long title is Community Justice, Bringing Community Initiatives to Develop and Access their own justice system. The presentation will discuss the following. One, that there is a gap in fisheries community management, governance, and monitoring, because come enforcement of this management, governance, and monitoring processes, or in terms of dispute resolution or a conflict to be managed, the communities, they surrender their ownership of this program, and kicks in is what is called the state-based litigation or justice system. And in this project, during the research, we have found out the following. The following has been reasons for the dislocation of the justice system from the community when there is a need to enforce or to resolve disputes or manage conflicts. And the reasons, as I'm going to state now, which I will explain later, is the following. One, it is the influence of colonialism in the Pacific. And as we know that most Pacific islands were colonized, the effect of colonialism is still being felt. The other is because of the same point, there's a colonial hangover where it was once mentioned by Pacific Studies professor Rocom at one time at the University of South Pacific, that the colonization was so effective that even some of what we Pacific Islanders hold on to now as our customs and traditions were in fact down the throats of our great-grandfathers and grandfathers by the colonizer. So that is the colonial hangover. The third point that I'm going to raise is because of the setting aside or putting sideways of traditional justice which amount to what I'm calling in this presentation community justice, has not developed. So that is the reason why for some it sounds as something new. And for the purpose of this project, we have taken the liberty to, first of all, justify that there is a traditional justice systems with values and processes and procedures that are similar to what is practiced in other jurisdictions, and also what is practiced in former colonies in terms of modernism and postmodernism. And then the fourth and final reason for the dislocation is a hesitation amongst ourselves, Pacific Islanders, to explore the fulfillment of self-determination as far as community justice goes. So in trying to justify traditional and community justice, what this project has gone into is to go as high as in the study of philosophies of law, legal philosophies of law, or the jurisprudences, and then it went down to what are the legal systems available to find out if a traditional or community legal justice system meets the international requirements and tests. And then we brought it down further to a dispute resolution mechanism that would stand the test if it was tested against international law. Another of the findings that we would also like to mention in general is how through the denial of a community justice system, the community governance, management and monitoring has been weakened because it never had the chance to learn how effective or how weak these systems are through a justice system. If communities have been giving themselves community justice through the process that they own and that they are part of, they would, of course, be quick to identify the strengths and weaknesses of their community governance, community management, and community monitoring, because they are there to how it has been breached and how decisions are to be enforced. Thank you. So that being how this presentation is going to be conducted, but the project itself, community justice, is delivered in two parts. Part one that I'm going to mention very briefly in this presentation, as it is part of a paper that we are also submitting, is to justify that community justice is part of a traditional justice system that is the equivalent of the restorative justice system, and also could be drawn out from a therapeutic jurisprudence that exists in the realms of other jurisprudence, like what we have in the Pacific as a retributive jurisprudence and an adversarial jurisprudence. And then we will make the justification in the later slides. And in doing that, we are recognizing that community justice or traditional justice is nothing new, nothing that the lemma is trying to pluck out of thin air and introduce. What I mean is that there are existing jurisprudences, justice systems, so as dispute resolution mechanisms that work on, if not the same, something similar. So what this community justice project is going to offer is the retributive and adversarial justice systems, but to offer something in parallel so that communities in their own setting at their own locations can also access and implement justice according to their ways of life. Thank you. So, as I said just before in my presentation, the purpose is not to replace that, but to offer similar jurisprudence and justice system parallel to the current, and get the communities to take back ownership of their justice system, and furthermore, to recognize that community justice, community members get to learn from their community governance, management, and monitoring systems through the implementation of the community justice system. Okay, as the background to the justification, I would like to very quickly mention, as I said, that Lema in this project had consulted with and had access to studies of jurisprudence at the University of Fiji and also studies on alternative dispute resolution as a postgrad unit in the University of Fiji. So the components of this presentation and the paper and the idea in general, not something that we came up with because we thought that there should be something that a justice system or jurisprudence should be parallel to the current, but it is through research and study we find that there are existing in other jurisdictions similar jurisprudence, similar justice systems, so as dispute resolution mechanisms. Okay, so let me go on and say that the findings from the research also found out what had been mentioned earlier as influence of colonialism, colonial hangover, undeveloped traditional practice, and we are going to go into that in details. During the research and the consultations, we found that traditionally justice systems, the enforcement of justice systems, almost entirely to the gods. You know, I have a story from my village where we have a conservation site, and when being part of the village itself, I am aware that there was no enforcement process, there was no grievance process, or no process to come into play if there is conflict or dispute. So, but I know that we have learned in the enforcement, some of us have had to learn the hard way, whereby from my village, a man from the neighboring village that used to steal from our conservation site actually got sick, was taken to Suwa, came back to the villages, went through several village doctors, and then somehow someone advised him to admit his fault in having been stealing all this while from our conservation, and to come and present what is called a bulubulu or a sorrow to my village. The good story, the good news about it is that after he did it, then like a miracle or mana or karma, as some people say, he was healed. There was no more illness, no more sickness. So the story goes on for us, traditional Fijians, is that if you go against the decisions or the wishes of the people that is called the Vanua, then you get to pay. So we found out that that has been one method of enforcement that traditional communities have been using. So even though it can be termed as very harsh, but it has been an effective way of enforcing decisions and addressing to breaches of decisions. The other one is that I would like to refer to is the influence of colonization, where enforcement, resolution of dispute, and management of conflict have been taken over by the state. As I stated earlier, a statement from Professor Ron Crocco, and there are also there's also literature about how the colonial ways were actually made to be superior to local ways. And in the process, locals adopt the values, even the looks of our colonizer. And I have an example of a great Fijian chief, Ratsukuna, who, because he had strong values and full of wisdom. What the colonial government did was to send him to university in England. And then when he came back, he was given this title of a big brown Englishman, okay? Still Fijian, still brown, but his ways were the ways of the Englishman. And he he belonged to a different class whilst he was here. Whilst the literature said that the English never accepted him, but the Fijians looked up at him for the new values and the new wisdom that he came back from. There's another story of Apollo Siranawai that also had the wisdom and was going to go against some of the colonial ideas, as in terms of commerce and finance. Because his views, even though good for Fijians, were not the views of the colonizer. So I'm sure that in the different Pacific Islands, there are other traditional wisdom or good traditional systems like the traditional justice systems that have been set aside, if not, as we come to the next point now, made redundant because of non-practice. The story about traditional justice in Fiji is that customary laws were never pleaded in the courts for very good reasons, even though they were colonial and there are some criticism against the colonial government. But the colonial administrators, so as the judicial officers, they were from abroad. So they did not accept the submission of customary laws because they were not practitioners of customs. So in that way, even when Tikina and provincial courts were established and were, and they had Tikina magistrates and provincial magistrates, the influence or the awards of a full magistrate court was so appealing because it looked like the colonial institution awards that even the Tikina and provincial courts were making awards similar to the magistrates court, and then which was one of the reasons why in 1968 these courts were withdrawn. Okay, so but when we look at the history of the justice system in Fiji, through the choice of the jurisprudences of adversarial jurisprudence and retributive jurisprudence, it is found out that like in other colonies, these jurisprudence serve the purpose of, I'm going to state here what I read, is that to marginalize the majority, these jurisprudences were chosen because of their effect or of their purpose to oppress and suppress the marginalized majority, which were the natives. So what this program is about, as I said earlier, is not to totally repeal or totally go away from this, but to offer something at community and Fijian village level, if possible, because this project is first of all meant for the Republic of Marshall Islands Fisheries community to be able to access justice in their own context, instead of reporting to a police that is not present in every communities or waiting for a magistrate to come every few months or so. When there is an act of injustice within the community, that communities can administer justice on their own. So in this slide, we have just listed the different jurisprudences from colonialism to post-colonialism, and where, as I said, community justice is heading as not an area that is totally unheard of, but it is new, and that is where we are taking this project. So, in terms of jurisprudence against these philosophies of law, there are parallel jurisprudences like therapeutic jurisprudence, even restorative jurisprudence and restorative justice that have existed and are more suited for the effect of the law on the people, unlike the purpose of oppressing and suppressing the marginalized majority. There are other philosophies of law like restorative, therapeutic, and non-adversarial justice systems that would suit Pacific Islanders better, not only then, but especially now that we have become independent and should be pursuing our right to self-determination as recognized in international law. Okay, so next on the presentation is laws. Now that I'm talking justice systems, should community justice only operate as an operator or at the level of dispute resolution mechanism? The response to that, in case some of us may be asking, is yes and no. No, in the sense that this work is usually left to the jurists, scholars, theologians, philosophers. But yes, because in 2011 in Busan, Korea, at the high level political forum, it was held that NGOs are also partners in development. NGOs used to be known as only deliverers of development program, where other people are responsible for the formulation of development programs, programming and so forth, and it is the work of NGOs to implement this. But this is no more. That used to be what it was before. So in the process of recognition of NGOs as development partners, NGOs are also expected to stand up and play the role of a credible development partner. So the obligations from Busan, from the side of partners to NGOs, gives them, state and academic institutions, so as entrepreneurs, a responsibility to create an enabling environment and also to provide a level playing field for NGOs to fulfill our role as development partner. So in this particular area, it continues a trend for modern NGOs now to not only call ourselves as practitioners and not try to be academics only, because of the richness in the knowledge of NGOs in the application of development programs at the ground level and the ability to trace this up and from the bottom bring it down. There's this concept that is called precademia. Most of you may have heard of it. Some of you that may have not. Precademia is also like a justification or an obligation for NGOs to work in the area of the development partners by being able to be part of the conversation from philosophical, theologian, theory level to the ground level, where NGOs by having and dispute resolution mechanisms. I would like to add here that we have come through a time where only statute-based processes that go through the formal act of legislation have been held, as I just said, formal and legal. I would like to state that community practices, community agreements, community decisions are also formal. They are also legal. Maybe not legal as in criminal, as having a criminal culpability, but they are legal as social contracts. They are legal as agreements between parties. So in that sense, as I said, we Precademias, we assist community members through enhancement of their capacity and give them the recognition that our ways, their ways, community governance, community management, community monitoring are as effective and as legal and as formal as another system that is passed in Parliament. I believe I would like to make that point too before we go on to the next slide. All right, in this slide, I'm actually just citing for references some of what we have been referring to earlier. One of which is the jurisprudence of hybridity. I talked about jurisprudences like the therapeutic jurisprudence that we are proposing, that it runs parallel to the retributive jurisprudence. Not only that, hybridity, where we as the owners of resources, stewards of resources, the human beings responsible, we should not be made to choose between them and us. We now have, through self-determination, through independence, the not only a right, but the obligation to choose from which of these processes shall we put together a procedure that will help us move forward. Mind you, that Pacific Islands have lived in dual legal systems, or sometimes three legal systems all along. By this, I say, as a Pacific Island in the office, in his professional capacity, he upholds the rules of corporate justice, corporate governance, and so is corporate human rights. When he goes home, then the Pacific Islander resorts to traditional justice, family. Some of the what he do or is in the office cannot happen at home. For example, for me, I may be something in the office, but when I go home, I'm the youngest of our brothers, so I know my role. I know how I should talk and when I should talk. And similarly, when I go to church, the church as an institution has people like pastors, reverends, who have a role to play. I have a role to play. What community justice is proposing now is that we've been parties, we've been practitioners of these different processes. Jurisprudence from retributive to therapeutic, so we can include the jurisprudence of hybridity, where we choose from the left and the right, bring them together for something that suits us. And there's also reference to the 2007 UN Declaration, where upon the recognition of the Declaration for the Rights of the Indigenous People, it calls on the indigenous people, indigenous Pacific Islanders, to exercise our right, not only our right, but our duty to self-determination, to stewards of our fishing grounds, to stewards of our natural resources, just as we now also have the environment jurisprudence, so as an environmental justice process. Okay, so what is happening also at community level is that from the University of the South Pacific, there has been a call by one of the former heads of school of law, which was calling for more specific jurisprudence. You know, we can go to another conversation of when in 1875, under the Supreme Court ordinance, there was call for colonial governments to choose and pick which common law and which rules of equity are applicable to them. But as I said before, unfortunately, those who were sitting on the bench, those who were sitting as administrators then, they were people from the colonial government. So not as non-practitioners of customary law, non-practitioners of traditional justices, they could not, and with due respect, choose which part of the common law should be applicable, so as which part of rules of equity should be included because they are acceptable to the local people. Okay, the next one is the conversation on local jurisprudences. You find that in community justice, we are trying to distinguish between that community justice is not totally traditional, is not totally from a traditional jurisprudence, because as I just mentioned earlier, it includes the jurisprudence of hybridity. It is borrowing from here, reflection again of the dynamism of customs to continue. And we also say that neither is a of the customary jurisprudence, but it is a jurisprudence on its own called community jurisprudence. We are mindful of the fact that communities mixed with people of different ethnicities, and in communities there are people representing the business sector. There are people who marry into the community. There are people visitors to the community. So a community jurisprudence is actually based on the understanding of the mobility of people, mobility of communities, and how when they belong to a community, when they are part of a community, they too should be part of the decision making because they are part of the community. It needs their duty and their right to inclusive participation. So from there, we see on this summary, this sketch that talks about the differences, jurisprudence, the different justice systems, and the different dispute resolution mechanisms that are in existence already in different jurisdictions with different people. Okay, having said that, just a quick introduction on the part 2 of the community justice process, which is also derived from indigenous, traditional, and community jurisprudence, as they reflect in jurisprudence terms the therapeutic and restorative jurisprudences. Having said that, there are communities, I know there are communities in Africa that have had this existing and continue to exist even up to now, parallel to the state systems. So what the justice will do is, instead of a one-size-fits-all, is to offer to fisheries community a series of enforcement, dispute resolution, and conflict management processes to suit whatever the type of disturbance, as we call, or undesirable behavior that might arise out of the community. We have the following to offer, and what the project will do is that we'll have a list of how some of these dispute resolution mechanisms, share it with the community members, or a choice of one, including all or including some of them. Before we go there, we are borrowing from the native Red Indians a sitting arrangement which goes this way. Having said that, we are aware that in some civil communities, there's a strict hierarchy society. There's a big man in the Melanesian societies, and so the Micronesians, they have their own cultural arrangements. So having said that, coming back to the jurisprudence of hybridity, we are also recognizing and recommending a hybrid approach whereby the decisions will have to be made in writing. The management, governance, and monitoring systems will have to be written in what is called bylaws. I know that people might say, if you are calling this traditional or customary, then why in customs? Find tradition. For that reason, we are just for purposes, we are not stuck with traditional and community, and for other reasons too, we are promoting the concept of community justice. And we are also borrowing from the bylaws a written form of codified bylaws that, similar to legislation as well, could be reviewed in during its operation. So, having said that, the way forward, as I touched on it briefly, is for the office project as part of LEMA to consult with the fisheries communities on the different jurisprudences available, the different forms of justice system and dispute resolution mechanisms for each different, as detailed as possible, for each different undesirable behavior which community members might find themselves in. As I said, instead of a one-size-fits-all, we are proposing differences and behaviors with to not so as generalize every offenses into one, but recognizing that resolution is the management, governance, and monitoring system of community fisheries system. We want to learn as much as we can from the differences, from the different undesirable behaviors, because it can tell us how to better formulate or amend our community management and community governance system. Having said that, we are also aware of the two different systems of dispute resolution. There is the adversarial system where the parties are split into two, and there is also the inquisitorial system where the elders or the people in the seat of responsibility inquire into the undesirable behavior. And we are also aware of the different standards, the criminal standard, which is one of proof beyond reasonable doubt, and the civil or inquisitorial standard of on a balance of probabilities. So what we are actually proposing as a way forward is recommended community circle as one of the 5, and then in the event this goes up to another level of a different criteria, there is community mediation, then followed by community conferencing, community litigation, community-led litigation, which is like a litigation process, but the positions are held by community members, or failing that, then the state litigation or the state process kicks in. Okay, and these are just some more explanation of these processes. But part two will contain in part two of this project will contain in more detail the differences and similarities of a community circle, from a community mediation, from community conferencing to community litigation and state-led litigation, which has been happening for a while and which has cost us a lot, which is the offense is reported to the police and the state mechanism kicks in. Okay, it's unfortunate that I'm not there to take questions now, but as arranged by our IT personnel, hopefully that tomorrow I will be on standby on another Zoom link to receive your views, your contributions, your questions as we continue to develop this concept that we are going to take first to the Republic of Marshall Islands and work on a pilot project with the Ajaltaki community. And at the same time, we are working with the Tauke Affairs Board in Fiji, partnering with the Village Laws project. Having said that, thank you very much for an opportunity to listen to me, to try and discuss what this project is about. And I understand, I have been told that I'm using a lot of legalistic word. I thought that was okay for justice, for justification process, but we are also developing a list of common definitions of some of the legal words that we are using, which we will take down to the communities when we work with them. Having said that, again, I'm very fortunate, I must say, to be part of this process, and I would like to thank LMMA for inviting me to be part of that, and as well as, and more importantly, Rhoda and the aid, and I wish everyone well. Without Waliu Nisamore.